The massive council chamber felt cold and empty as Ambassador Kim Hyun walked toward the center platform. His black diplomatic uniform stood out against the colorful robes and strange body shapes of the alien delegates surrounding him. This was the third time humans had asked to join the Galactic Council, and Kim could already see the answer in their dismissive expressions. The Vorthak Chancellor, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms, didn't even bother to stand up. His voice carried across the silent chamber with the tone of someone announcing yesterday's weather. The Council has reviewed humanity's application for membership. Once again, we must decline. Your species lacks the civilized restraint necessary for galactic society. Kim felt his jaw tighten, but his face remained calm. Years of diplomatic training kept his anger hidden. Around him, alien delegates whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or grinding metal. Some pointed at him with appendages that weren't quite fingers. Others simply turned away, already bored with the proceedings. Perhaps in another century or two, when your people have evolved beyond their primitive instincts, we can reconsider, the Chancellor continued. Until then, Earth will remain under our protection but outside our union. The word protection stung the most. It wasn't protection, it was a cage. Humans could trade with alien species, but only through approved channels. They could explore space, but only in designated areas. They could develop technology, but nothing that might threaten the established order. What none of these aliens knew was that Captain Park Min sat in a small ship just outside the station, wearing headphones and recording every word. For 8 months he had been intercepting their private communications, using technology the Council believed humans were too primitive to possess. The recordings told a different story than the polite rejections. Humans breed too quickly, one delegate had said during a private meeting last week. Give them full membership, and they'll outnumber us within generations. Their violence is barely contained, another had added. They fight wars over resources we consider worthless. Imagine what they'd do with access to real weapons. Better to keep them as pets, the Vorthak Chancellor himself had laughed. Useful for manual labor and dangerous exploration, but never as equals. Park Min had recorded it all. Every insult, every dismissive comment, every moment of alien superiority. The recordings now sat in secure files on Earth, being studied by military analysts and government officials who were growing tired of polite diplomacy. Kim bowed slightly to the Council as protocol demanded. I thank the Council for their consideration. Humanity will continue to prove its worth through peaceful cooperation and technological advancement. The aliens smiled at his submissive words. They had no idea that this would be the last time humanity would ask nicely for anything. As Kim walked toward the exit, his communication device buzzed with a single message from Earth. Package received. New instructions incoming. The age of human patience was ending. The galaxy just didn't know it yet. The message from the Galactic Council reached Earth at 14:32 GMT on a Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, something unprecedented happened. Every nation on Earth agreed on the same plan. Presidents called Prime. Ministers general spoke with admirals, and within 24 hours the most powerful military alliance in human history formed in complete silence. Director Lee Su stood in the underground command center beneath Seoul, watching dozens of screens, showing activity across the solar system. She had been chosen to coordinate what officials were calling Project Unity, though everyone knew its real purpose. Her fingers moved across holographic displays, sending encrypted orders to shipyards, factories, and mining stations throughout human space. Status report from Mars Colony 7, her assistant announced. They've successfully installed the new power cores in 12 cargo haulers. From the outside, they still looked like regular freight ships. Lee nodded, making notes on her tablet. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Humans had been building civilian vessels for decades, ships designed for mining asteroids, exploring distant planets, and hauling cargo between colonies. The aliens saw these as harmless tools of a developing species. They had no idea that every ship built in the last 6 months could be converted into a warship within hours. Across the asteroid belt, mining vessels that normally extracted precious metals were being fitted with magnetic railguns disguised as drilling equipment. On lunar base, Exploration ships received targeting computers hidden inside their navigation systems. Even the old passenger liners got upgrades. Their cargo holds now contained missile launchers that looked like emergency supply pods. Dr. Han Sol barely slept anymore. Her laboratory on Europa Station had become the most important facility in human space, though officially it was just researching improved communication systems. She held up a device no bigger than her palm. It looked like a simple computer chip, but it represented 3 years of stolen alien technology and human engineering. The quantum disruptor works by creating interference patterns in energy fields, she explained to her team. Alien shields depend on stable quantum frequencies. This little device makes those frequencies very unstable. Her assistant, a young engineer named Kim Tae, examined the chip through a microscope. And they have no idea we can do this. They think we're still using chemical rockets and nuclear power, Han smiled. They've never bothered to check what we're actually capable of. That's going to be their biggest mistake. Meanwhile, Ambassador Kim Hyun continued his diplomatic duties as if nothing had changed. He attended council meetings, signed trade agreements, and made polite conversation with alien officials who treated him like a child playing dress-up. Every smile was genuine because he knew something they didn't. During a dinner party on the council station, the Vorthak Chancellor approached him with what passed for friendly conversation among his species. "I hope Earth isn't too disappointed by our decision," the Chancellor said, his forearms making gestures that were probably meant to be reassuring. "Perhaps in time, when your people mature." "Of course," Kim replied, sipping his drink. "Humanity understands that these things take time. We're patient by nature." The Chancellor laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Patient, yes, that's what we appreciate about your species. If only he knew how wrong he was." Commander Choi Jun studied the holographic display in his cramped command ship, watching as news feeds across the galaxy reported the same story. "Humanity withdraws from galactic politics," read the headlines. "Earth leaders call for peaceful isolation." The broadcasts showed crowds of humans protesting outside government buildings, demanding their leaders stop embarrassing the species with repeated council applications. The protests were completely fake. Every angry citizen was actually a trained actor, and every news reporter was reading from carefully prepared scripts. But the aliens believed every word of it. "Sir, the Vorthak intelligence services are buying it completely," reported his communications officer. "They're already reducing their surveillance of human space. They think we're too ashamed to cause trouble." Choi allowed himself a small smile. The aliens' biggest weakness was their arrogance. They could never imagine that primitive humans might be capable of such sophisticated deception. While they watched fake protests on Earth, real human operatives were quietly spreading throughout Council territory, like seeds in fertile soil. Lieutenant Nam Yi floated in the maintenance shaft of a Kalarian prison ship, studying the security systems through her helmet display. Getting captured had been surprisingly easy. She and her team had simply attacked a minor cargo vessel while wearing outdated human equipment. The aliens assumed they were desperate pirates and threw them into the nearest detention facility. "The cell locks are controlled by a central computer," she whispered into her communicator. "Guard rotations happen every 6 hours. Emergency protocols are laughably simple." Her cellmate, Sergeant Park Woo, looked up from where he was pretending to sleep. "How many facilities like this are there?" 47 in this sector alone," Nam replied, "and now we know exactly how to break into every single one." The other prisoners, real criminals from various alien species, had no idea that the quiet humans in the corner were memorizing every detail of their surroundings. Within weeks, Nam's team would be rescued by a prisoner transport malfunction. That was anything but accidental. They would return to human space with complete blueprints of Council detention systems. Meanwhile, human merchants were having very different conversations in markets across the galaxy. Li Hyo ran a small trading post on the neutral world of Kepler Prime, selling Earth-made goods to anyone with currency. Her customers had no idea that every friendly chat was gathering intelligence. "Business has been difficult lately," complained Zoran, a trader from the Helix Confederation. "The Council keeps raising taxes on our shipping routes. It's like they want to drive us independent worlds into poverty." Lee nodded sympathetically while refilling his drink. That must be frustrating. How many independent worlds feel this way? All of them, Zoran said bitterly. The Helix Confederation, the Outer Rim Alliance, even some of the core worlds are starting to question Council policies. But what can we do? They have all the military power. Lee made mental notes while maintaining her concerned expression. The Helix Confederation had 12 worlds and significant mining operations. The Outer Rim Alliance controlled important trade routes. Both groups had been complaining about Council taxation for decades. Similar conversations were happening on hundreds of worlds. Human traders, diplomats, and merchants were discovering that the unified Galactic Council was actually a collection of frustrated species held together by fear and habit. Ancient territorial disputes simmered beneath polite diplomatic language. Economic grievances grew stronger each year. Dr. Song Min, posing as a xenobiology researcher, spent her time documenting alien psychology and military doctrine. Her academic papers were published in respected journals, but her real findings went straight to human military intelligence. The Vorthak rely heavily on automated defense systems, she reported during an encrypted transmission to Earth. There, soldiers are trained for ceremonial duties more than actual combat. The Calarians have superior weapons, but poor coordination between their fleets. Each piece of information was another weapon in humanity's growing arsenal. While the aliens celebrated their successful rejection of human membership, humans were quietly learning everything they needed to know about their enemies. The greatest deception was that there was no deception at all, just patient, methodical preparation for war. Captain Yu Dan watched through his helmet display as 3 Vorthak patrol ships approached the seemingly empty asteroid field. The aliens had received reports of human smugglers operating in this sector, reports that were completely true, just not in the way they expected. What looked like a routine cargo inspection was about to become the opening shot of a war. There, scanning the asteroid, his tactical officer whispered through the comm system. Still haven't detected our ships. Yu smiled grimly. The human vessels were built into hollowed-out asteroids, their heat signatures masked by the natural rock around them. To alien sensors, they looked like nothing more than space debris. It was an old Earth military trick, hide in plain sight. The lead Vorthak ship, a sleek vessel twice the size of any human craft, moved closer to investigate what their sensors showed as a suspicious energy reading. Captain Vextar had commanded patrol duties for 15 years and had never encountered anything more dangerous than drunk cargo pilots. His crew of 40 Vorthak soldiers were trained for police work, not combat. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself," came the standard hail. Across communication channels, the Vorthak expected either silence or stammered excuses from caught smugglers. They got neither. Instead, the asteroid exploded outward as hidden panels opened, revealing weapon systems that shouldn't have existed. Dr. Han Sol's quantum disruptors fired first, invisible beams that made the alien ship's shields flicker and die like candles in a hurricane. Before the Vorthak crew could even process what was happening, their weapons systems went offline. "Target their engines," Yu commanded. "No one escapes." The human ships emerged from their hiding places like predators emerging from ambush. They moved with coordination that spoke of months of training, their targeting systems locked onto vital ship components. The aliens had superior technology, but technology meant nothing when it stopped working. Captain Vextar tried to send a distress signal, but human jamming equipment turned his communications into static. His crew scrambled to restore their shields, while alarms blared throughout their ship. For the first time in his career, Vextar felt genuine fear. "Sir, they're requesting boarding clearance," his communications officer reported, voice shaking. "Denied," Vextar snapped. "Prepare for ramming speed. If we're going to die, we'll take them with us." But the human ships were already alongside, magnetic clamps attaching to the hull with metallic thuds that echoed through the alien vessel. Cutting torches began burning through the outer plating, sending sparks flying through the corridor viewports. Lieutenant Kimbo led the first boarding team through the breach. The Vorthak soldiers waiting inside were trained for ceremony and crowd control, not close combat against humans, who had spent generations fighting each other in Earth's bloodiest wars. The aliens carried energy weapons designed to stun criminals, not kill determined soldiers. The humans carried projectile weapons loaded with armor-piercing rounds. The fight lasted exactly 4 minutes. Kim's team moved through the ship like they had studied its layout for months, which they had. Nam Yi's intelligence from the prison ships had provided detailed blueprints of Vorthak vessel designs. Every corridor, every junction, every defensive position was already mapped in human tactical computers. Within an hour, all 3 Vorthak ships were under human control. Their crews were dead, their computer systems downloaded, their weapons and technology ready for analysis. Captain Yu stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, looking at displays showing patrol routes and fleet positions throughout Vorthak space. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Operation Ghost Protocol is active." Across the sector, similar ambushes were happening simultaneously. Human forces struck 12 different patrol groups at exactly the same time, using identical tactics. By the end of the day, 36 Vorthak ships had simply vanished from space, their final transmissions cut short by an enemy that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. The galaxy's first lesson about humanity was simple. Humans had been fighting wars since before the Vorthak had discovered fire. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display show 47 Council warships moving toward human space. The combined fleet represented 5 different alien species, their most advanced vessels loaded with weapons that could crack planets. Behind him, his staff officers discussed deployment strategies with the confidence of professionals who had never lost a battle. Intelligence reports suggest the humans have perhaps 20 crewed vessels in this sector, his tactical advisor announced. "Converted civilian ships with basic weapons. This should be resolved within hours." Kethvar nodded, adjusting his ceremonial armor. In 300 years of service, he had put down 17 rebellions across the galaxy. The pattern was always the same. Inferior species would make a desperate gesture of defiance, lose quickly, then submit to council authority. Humans would be no different. Colonel Subin received the alien fleet's approach vector while sitting in what looked like an old mining control room. Around her, screens showed the positions of human ships throughout the asteroid belt, vessels that appeared to be fleeing in panic toward the outer system. The aliens would see exactly what they expected to see: cowardly humans running from superior forces. "They're taking the bait," reported her communications officer. "Enemy formation is spreading out to pursue our fleeing ships." Sue smiled coldly. The aliens fought like their wars were sporting events, with rules and honor and predictable tactics, learned from military academies. Humans had learned warfare in trenches and bombed cities, where survival mattered more than glory. The first alien ships entered the asteroid field, pursuing what they thought were escaping human vessels. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by hidden weapon platforms that opened fire from every direction. But these weren't normal weapons. They targeted specific systems with surgical precision. "Hit their life support first," Sue commanded. "I want their crews to know they're dying." Human weapons punched through alien hull plating and deliberately breached atmospheric systems. Emergency alarms screamed through alien ships as air began venting into space. Crew members scrambled for emergency suits while their ships continued, taking damage. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Alien crews had never faced an enemy that specifically tried to suffocate them. Their military training covered tactical defeats and honorable surrenders, not the terror of slowly running out of air while listening to their friends die. Lieutenant Park Sung commanded a converted cargo hauler that suddenly accelerated toward a massive council dreadnought. The aliens expected him to veer off at the last moment. Ramming attacks were considered barbaric and had been banned by galactic law for centuries. Park had no intention of veering off. His ship struck the alien vessel at full speed, punching through their shields and hull armor like a spear through paper. The explosion destroyed both vessels instantly, but not before human communication systems broadcast the entire event across all frequencies. Every alien ship in the battle watched one of their most powerful warships die to a tactic no civilized species would consider. Admiral Kethvar stared at his displays in growing horror. Half his fleet was disabled or destroyed, their crews either dead or trapped in powerless ships drifting through space. The humans weren't fighting a battle. They were conducting an execution. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human forces," his communications officer reported, voice shaking. "Put it through," Kethvar ordered. Colonel Sue's face appeared on the main screen, speaking from what looked like a command bunker. Behind her, displays showed the positions of every alien ship in the battle, their damaged systems highlighted in red. "Admiral Kethvar," she said calmly, "your fleet is finished. You have two choices. Surrender now and be taken prisoner, or continue fighting and watch your crews suffocate in the darkness. You have 5 minutes to decide." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Around them, alien ships drifted powerless through space while human voices filled the communication channels with tactical updates and casual conversation, as if the total destruction of a council fleet was just another day's work. Kethvar had commanded fleets across the galaxy, but he had never faced an enemy that treated war like butchery instead of politics. The Galactic Council's emergency session began at dawn on Nexus Prime, with delegates arriving in ships that trembled from hyperspace jumps made in desperate haste. The great chamber that had once echoed with civilized debate now buzzed with panic and disbelief. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Council faced an enemy that didn't follow their rules. Chancellor Vexithara of the Ethereal Collective floated above her speaking platform, her translucent form flickering with distress. "The reports from Admiral Kethvar's fleet are disturbing. Humans are using tactics that violate every principle of civilized warfare." Representative Morton from the Calarian Empire slammed his armored fist on his desk, causing several smaller delegates to jump. "So they used our own prisoners as shields. Our crews couldn't fire without killing their own people. What kind of monsters fight this way?" The holographic displays around the chamber showed battle footage that made seasoned military officers look away. Human ships deliberately ramming into alien vessels, captured council soldiers forced to stand in front of human weapon positions during boarding actions, chemical compounds that had been banned for 2,000 years filling alien ship corridors, causing crews to abandon their posts in terror. Agent O-Tai sat in the observation gallery, looking like just another civilian observer interested in galactic politics. Her recording equipment was built into what appeared to be a simple translation device, capturing every word spoken in the chamber. The council members had no idea that their most sensitive military discussions were being transmitted directly to human command centers across the galaxy. "The humans must be stopped before this madness spreads," declared Senator Kyle from the Hegemony Worlds. "If other species see that such tactics can succeed, it will destroy thousands of years of progress towards civilized conflict resolution." Prime Minister Zorath of the Vorthak stood slowly, his forearms trembling with rage. "My people have lost 3 entire fleets. 3 fleets. Ships that took decades to build. Crews that trained for years. All destroyed by an enemy that fights like wild animals." The Ethereal Collective's representative pulsed with calming blue, light, trying to restore order to the increasingly chaotic session. "Perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans obviously feel we have wronged them somehow. Surely we can reach a peaceful resolution." "Negotiation?" Mortan's voice cracked with disbelief. "They broadcast the screams of dying crews across open channels. They pump poison gas into life support systems. These aren't rational beings we can negotiate with. They're savage killers." O-Tai carefully adjusted her recording device, making sure she captured every detail of the military planning session that followed. The delegates began discussing fleet movements, defensive positions, and resource allocation for what they were calling Operation Cleansing Fire, a full-scale assault on human space designed to end the conflict quickly. "We'll mobilize every available ship," announced Fleet Commander Zirian. 200 vessels from 7 different species. We'll surround Earth itself and force their surrender through siege tactics." "What about civilian casualties?" asked the ethereal representative. "The humans clearly don't care about civilian casualties," Mortan replied coldly. "Why should we extend them courtesies they don't offer us?" The debate continued for hours, with military leaders arguing for increasingly aggressive tactics while diplomatic voices called for restraint. What none of them realized was that human intelligence networks had been monitoring their communications for months. Every ship movement, every supply depot, every staging area was already known to human forces. As the session broke for recess, Ho-Tae transmitted her recordings to Captain Park Min, who sat in a stealth ship just outside the Nexus system. Within minutes, the intelligence reached human command centers throughout the galaxy. "They're planning to siege Earth," Park reported to his superiors. 200 ships, full assault, targeting civilian populations if necessary. The response from human command was immediate and chilling. Acknowledged. Proceed to Phase 7. While the aliens debated how to fight an honorable war against an enemy that didn't believe in honor, humans were already preparing their next move. The Council thought they were dealing with desperate rebels making random attacks. They had no idea they were facing an entire species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of total war. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just break the rules of civilized warfare. They had never agreed to follow them in the first place. New Geneva Station floated in the void like a small city made of metal and glass, its residential sectors glowing with the warm light of human homes. 10,000 civilians lived there. Families, children, elderly people who had spent their lives building humanity's first major space colony. It was supposed to be a symbol of human progress, a peaceful outpost far from Earth's conflicts. Commander Bay 1 stood in the station's command center, watching her tactical displays show the approaching Council fleet. 87 warships surrounded New Geneva Station in a perfect sphere, their weapons trained on the civilian habitat modules. She could see families through the observation windows, parents holding children who didn't understand why the adults looked so frightened. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Council fleet," reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Jiang Wu. Admiral Kethvar's face appeared on the main screen, his expression cold with determination. "Commander Bay 1, you are ordered to surrender New Geneva Station immediately. Your military forces will be taken prisoner, and civilian populations will be relocated to appropriate facilities under Council protection." Bay looked at the Admiral for a long moment before responding. "And if we refuse, then we will take the station by force," Kethvar replied. "Our assault troops are already prepared. You have 1 hour to evacuate all military personnel and surrender control." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Around the station, Bay could see Council boarding craft moving into position, their hulls gleaming, with the insignia of 5 different alien species. Each craft carried 50 soldiers trained in station assault tactics. "Commander," Lieutenant Jiang said quietly, "we have maybe 300 combat-capable personnel. They have over 4,000 assault troops. The civilians, I know," Bay interrupted, her voice calm despite the situation. She walked to the engineering console and began entering authorization codes that she had hoped never to use. Send. A message to all department heads. Emergency Protocol 7 is now active. Emergency Protocol 7 was humanity's darkest secret. Every major human installation built in the last decade contained the same hidden system. Antimatter charges powerful enough to vaporize the entire facility. The technology had been developed in secret, justified as a last resort against alien invasion. Today, that last resort had arrived. Dr. Kim Soo, the station's chief engineer, arrived in the command center within minutes. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady as she began connecting the detonation systems. "Commander, the civilians, surely we can evacuate them first." "There's no time," Bay replied, watching the Council boarding craft move closer. "And even if there was, where would they go? The Council fleet would just capture them and use them as hostages." She opened a station-wide communication channel, her voice reaching every home, every workplace, every corner of New Geneva Station. "This is Commander Bay 1 speaking to all residents of New Geneva Station. The Galactic Council has surrounded us with overwhelming force and demanded our surrender. In a few minutes, they will attempt to board our station and take control of our home." Families gathered around communication screens throughout the station, children pressing close to their parents as they listened to words that would change everything. "We have a choice," Bay continued. "We can surrender and become prisoners of the species that have rejected humanity for centuries, or we can make a statement that will be remembered throughout the galaxy. We can show them that humans would rather die free than live as slaves. The voting system activated automatically, as it did for all major station decisions. But this wasn't a vote about budget allocations or work schedules. This was a vote about whether 10,000 people would choose death over submission. The results appeared on Bay's screen within 10 minutes. 89% had voted yes. Lieutenant Yang stared at the numbers in disbelief. "Sir, they're voting to die. Families with children, elderly people, they're all voting to die rather than surrender." Bay opened a direct channel to Admiral Kethvar's flagship. When the Admiral's face appeared on screen, she spoke with the calm voice of someone who had already made peace with her decision. "Admiral, New Geneva Station rejects your terms. We have armed this facility with antimatter charges sufficient to vaporize everything within a 50-kilometer radius. If your forces attempt to board this station, we will detonate immediately. You have 10 minutes to withdraw your fleet." Kethvar's expression shifted from confidence to disbelief. "You're bluffing. No civilized species would destroy their own civilians." "We're not civilized," Bay replied simply. "We're human." 8 minutes later, the first Council boarding craft attached to New Geneva's docking ports. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. The news of New Geneva Station's destruction spread across the galaxy like wildfire through dry wood. Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting the same impossible story. Humans had vaporized their own civilians rather than surrender to Council forces. The footage showed nothing but empty space, where a thriving colony had existed, with debris fields that would drift through the void for centuries. On the Calarian homeworld, protests erupted outside government buildings as families demanded the return of their military sons and daughters. The proud warrior culture that had dominated the Calarian Empire for millennia suddenly faced parents who valued their children more than galactic conquest. "Bring them home!" crowds chanted outside the Imperial Palace. "No more war with the sea. Humans!" Emperor Valdris watched the demonstrations from his throne room windows, his armored hands gripping the stone ledge until it cracked. His military advisors stood behind him in uncomfortable silence, reviewing casualty reports that made no sense. The Calarian Navy had lost 43 ships and 12,000 soldiers to an enemy that was supposed to be technologically inferior. "How do we fight an enemy that would rather die than lose?" he asked his generals. "Our entire military doctrine is based on forcing surrender through superior force. What happens when the enemy refuses to surrender?" Similar conversations were happening across Council space. The Vorthak had lost 6 fleets and were facing the first rebellion in their colonies in over 2 centuries. The hegemony worlds discovered that several member species were quietly withdrawing their military support, unwilling to sacrifice their forces against humans who fought like they had nothing to lose. General Song He sat in her command ship at the edge of human space, reviewing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The human spy network that had taken years to establish was now paying dividends, providing real-time information about Council military capabilities and political fractures. "Ma'am, we're receiving withdrawal notifications from 17 different Council species," reported her intelligence officer, Major Lim J. "The Outer Rim Alliance has officially declared neutrality. The Helix Confederation is recalling all military forces to defensive positions." Song nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed Council fleet positions throughout the galaxy. What had once been an overwhelming military advantage was rapidly dissolving into scattered, demoralized forces that no longer believed in their mission. "Open a channel on all galactic frequencies," she ordered. "It's time to make our position clear." The transmission reached every inhabited world in Council space simultaneously. Song appeared on screens in government buildings, military bases and civilian homes, her uniform crisp and her expression calm. Behind her, tactical displays showed the positions of human forces that had appeared seemingly overnight throughout the galaxy. "I am General Song He of the Human Defense Force," she began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had just won an impossible war. "For centuries, the Galactic Council has treated humanity as a curiosity, a primitive species, suitable for labor but unworthy of respect. That era is now over." The displays behind her shifted to show detailed intelligence about Council military installations, trade routes and planetary defenses. Information that should have been impossible for humans to obtain was laid out with surgical precision. Humanity offers the following terms to the Galactic Council: immediate recognition of human sovereignty over all systems currently occupied by human forces, establishment of permanent human representation in Council proceedings, with full voting rights, and complete withdrawal of all Council military forces from territories claimed by Earth. Emperor Valdris watched the broadcast with growing dread, recognizing classified Calarian military positions displayed on Song's tactical screens. How long had humans been watching them? How much did they know? These terms are non-negotiable. Song continued. However, we understand that some council members may prefer alternative arrangements. The display shifted again, showing detailed attack plans for the homeworlds of every major council species. Orbital bombardment patterns, ground, assault routes, civilian population centers marked for targeting. The plans were comprehensive, professional, and utterly terrifying in their scope. Ambassador Kim Hyun appeared alongside General Song, his diplomatic composure unchanged despite the circumstances. When he spoke, his voice carried the same polite formality he had used during years of rejected membership applications. The Galactic Council has 72 hours to respond to these terms, he said, with the calm professionalism that had once seemed like weakness. After that deadline, humanity will begin implementing our alternative diplomatic strategy, starting with the systematic destruction of Council infrastructure. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Within hours, Council emergency sessions convened on dozens of worlds as government leaders tried to process the impossible situation they now faced. The species that had been rejected as too primitive to join civilized society was now dictating terms to the civilization that had rejected them. The age of human patience had ended. The age of human dominance was about to begin. The Galactic Council chambers had never been this quiet. Where once the sound of dozens of alien languages filled the air with debate and discussion, now only silence remained. The great circular hull that had witnessed 3 centuries of galactic governance felt smaller somehow, as if the weight of recent events had pressed down on its very walls. Ambassador Kim Hyun walked slowly toward the center platform, his black diplomatic uniform, the same one he had worn during 3 rejected membership applications. But everything else had changed. The alien delegates who had once looked down on him with barely concealed contempt now watched his every movement with something between fear and fascination. The human delegation that followed him was small but unmistakable in its confidence. General Song-hee wore her military uniform with the casual authority of someone who had just won an impossible war. Director Lee Soo carried data tablets containing detailed intelligence about every species in the chamber. Captain Park Min stood at attention, his presence a quiet reminder of the human fleet now patrolling the space around the council station. Chancellor Vexithara of the Ethereal Collective floated above her speaking platform, her translucent form flickering with barely controlled emotion. As the current council president, the responsibility of addressing this unprecedented situation fell to her. The Galactic Council recognizes the delegation from Earth, she announced, her voice carrying through the chamber's translation systems. We extend a formal invitation for humanity to join the Galactic Council as a full member species with all rights and privileges thereof. Kim bowed slightly, exactly as he had during his previous rejections, but now that gesture of respect looked more like a predator acknowledging prey. The human species graciously accepts the Council's invitation, he replied, his voice carrying the same diplomatic politeness that had once seemed like weakness. We look forward to contributing to galactic civilization and bringing our unique perspective to Council proceedings. Representative Mortan from the Calarian Empire shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his armored form looking somehow smaller than before. Just months ago, he had voted against human membership, citing their primitive aggression as incompatible with civilized society. Now half his empire's fleet was space debris, and the other half was in full retreat toward Calarian home space. If I may ask, Mortan said carefully, what will be humanity's first priority as council members? Kim smiled, and several alien delegates visibly flinched at the expression. It was the same polite smile he had worn during years of diplomatic meetings, but now they understood what it really meant. "Humanity believes in practical governance," Kim replied. "We've already begun implementing security improvements in sectors that were previously underprotected. Our fleets are establishing patrol routes to ensure safe passage for all Council member species." What he didn't say was that those patrol routes effectively gave humans control over the galaxy's major trade corridors. What he called security improvements were military installations that could blockade entire star systems within hours. Prime Minister Zorath of the Vorthak attempted to maintain some semblance of his former authority. The Council has traditionally operated through consensus and mutual cooperation. How does humanity intend to honor these principles? General Song stepped forward, her expression professionally neutral. "Humanity fully supports consensus governance. We're confident that all Council members will find our proposals reasonable." The unspoken threat hung in the air like smoke. The assembled delegates understood that human proposals would be accepted, because the alternative was the systematic destruction they had already witnessed. Consensus was still possible when everyone agreed with the species that had just demonstrated its willingness to vaporize entire populations rather than accept defeat. Dr. Kim Soo, serving as humanity's science advisor, activated a holographic display showing current galactic territories. The map revealed the scope of human expansion over the past months. Dozens of systems now flew Earth's flag, creating a network of human-controlled space that stretched across 3 spiral arms. "Humanity is committed to peaceful coexistence with all Council species," Kim continued. "We believe that strong leadership and clear communication are essential for maintaining galactic stability." The ethereal collective's representative pulsed with nervous energy. "And if disagreements arise between member species, how does the Council resolve conflicts under this new arrangement?" Kim's smile widened slightly. "Humanity has extensive experience in conflict resolution. We're happy to mediate disputes between Council members and ensure that all parties reach mutually acceptable solutions." Every delegate in the chamber understood exactly what kind of mediation humans offered. They had all seen the footage from New Geneva Station, watched as an entire human colony chose annihilation over surrender. They knew that any species foolish enough to challenge human authority would face an enemy that viewed total war as just another diplomatic option. As the session concluded and delegates filed out of the chamber, whispered conversations filled the corridors. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and it wore the polite mask of human diplomacy while carrying weapons that could crack worlds. The age of alien supremacy was over. The human era had begun, and it would be written in the language that Earth's children understood best: absolute victory through absolute commitment. The galaxy belonged to humanity now, and everyone knew it.